Writing a complete sentence is probably the most challenging academic task you will ask of your kindergartners this school year. So, before we get too far into our sentence writing unit, I want to remind you to give yourself and your students some grace because writing is hard work. Hi, I'm Amy Murray from Teaching Exceptional Kinders, and I'm so glad you're here to get an inside peek at our sentence writing unit. Teaching writing was a chore for me at the beginning of kindergarten, and we had a big box curriculum for all of our ELA. It really lacked what I didn't really understand back then. It really lacked a strong writing curriculum of any kind, and phonics was lacking too. And so when they don't have the phonics skills and we're not scaffolding writing in a way that makes any kind of sense, it just doesn't work. So our sentence writing curriculum, mini curriculum here, starts with the very basics and builds supports on top of that. What do I mean when I say basics? Well, I don't know if you've had this experience, but for me, when I was teaching and using our big box curriculum, it would be like, here, show them a picture and tell them to think about a time they've done something like this and go write about it. What? So we rewound and started all the way back at labeling. So you want to check out our labeling unit first. And then we started making lists of things. So like labeling was just like, we did like an activity where they would label me with sticky notes, and then we labeled pictures, we labeled all the things, right? And then listing, we would just make lists of things, make a list of things that are blue and da 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 da. You can check out those. I'll link them down below. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe and like so YouTube knows that this was helpful for you and will show to other kindergarten teachers as well. And then when we're ready for writing sentences, we need to understand what a sentence is, right? We can't just say write a sentence with a capital letter at the beginning and spaces between words. And even if they understand what words are, they can just like string some words together, black cat, up, down. That's not a sentence, right? They need to understand that we write, first of all, the purpose of writing is to tell people something, right? So our writing has to make sense. That's the biggest thing. I just poked myself on the nose. Jeez Louise. The purpose of writing is to tell someone something, right? You're trying to convey a message. Now, convey a message, whoop, right? But the purpose of writing is to tell someone something. And sentences, you can see over there, I'll put a better picture here of our board. A sentence is a group of words that tells us something. Okay. And we would chant that every day. We're going to write sentences today. What's a sentence? A sentence is a group of words that tells us something. Okay, because that's generally what a sentence is. But it's not just a group of words, and it's not just a capital letter and a period, because if you tell them that from the beginning, they're going to write all their little ideas down, and they're going to either put a period after every word. That's what my own kindergartner did. Or they're going to put a period at the end of every line, because that's where they think they go. They don't understand where one sentence ends and another one begins, right? So we got to rewind and start with a naming part and a telling part, and then you put them together to make a sentence. The naming part tells who or what the sentence is about, and the telling part tells what's happening, right? Mrs. Murray, that's the naming part, is a teacher. That's the telling part. Now, I like to start with more action verbs, and you can see on the poster back here, it says, the dog runs fast. So we would take a look at that sentence and say, who is this sentence about? And they would hopefully come up with the dog, and then we'd say, oh, that's our naming part. And then we'd move on and talk about the telling part. So inside of our unit, you'll get the posters you see behind me, but also your naming part poster, and your telling part poster. You can see how it is different. And then posters for all of the conventions. So your capital letters and punctuation marks and spacing, punctuation, and spelling. Those are the conventions that we really focused on in kindergarten and helped get us where we needed to go. Once they understand that a naming part and a telling part go together to make a sentence, then you're ready to move on to some of those conventions. Okay. And when we did conventions, we did our 5-star sentence writing checklist, something like this. And then they start to understand, okay, these are the parts that my sentence needs. But we did one section at a time. So inside of our sentence writing unit, you'll find all of your lesson plans. And on these, now there's editable PowerPoints, so you can make them your own, add your own state standards. I used Common Core standards here. I know not everybody does. Even in Pennsylvania, we have our own version. So there's all the standards and things that you need. And then at the bottom, you'll find pictures of the different anchor charts or corresponding worksheets that you can use with this lesson. And here you'll find the posters that go along with your lesson. So you can see everything you need at a glance. Now, every single anchor chart comes with a corresponding worksheet for the students. Like here's the... I think I have the anchor chart attached to this one, but here is the worksheet for building your naming part and telling part and then writing the sentence. That's an early on activity. And then as you get further into the telling part, instead of just identifying, you're going to be writing the telling part, but you can do it together, you know, on this, and you can project this onto your board if you have like a whiteboard or a smart board that you can project onto. We had a whiteboard, and then I could just write up there. And then the students will have their version. This isn't exactly it, but let's say it is. The student would have their version and they can write with you. And that way you're giving them scaffolded, supported practice. You're writing it together, they're writing it on their board or on their papers. And then there's also an identical worksheet, just different pictures. So the same skill, the same setup that they can do independently later. So you don't have to do, like they don't have to fill out the worksheet as while you're doing it. Or maybe the first day, the activity, like you break the lesson into 2 parts. And the first day you do it together. And then the next day you give them their own telling part worksheet, and then they have to find the telling part on theirs, or they have to name the telling part on theirs, if you will. I'm trying to see if I have, we just have other versions of the worksheets. So like here's the telling part where they have to find their own, and then this is the telling part anchor chart where you would find it together, and then they have a worksheet that correlates with that, and then the next day they could do their own independently to see if they really are understanding the concept. And that way it gives you lots of opportunities for practice without overwhelming the students and giving that scaffolded support. Because one of the keys that I found in writing is to give opportunities for success early and often. If you sit this paper in front of them at the beginning and say, here you go, we're going to write sentences today, they're going to shut down, they're going to quit, they are going to feel frustrated. But if you start way back at the beginning with that cat paper that I showed you, where we're cutting it apart, we're matching to the picture, we're working together on this one, and then you go back to your seat and you can try one on your own, or you can do this. You see what I'm saying? You're way more likely to set them up for success when you're scaffolding bit by bit. So the first couple of lessons are about naming part and telling part, like we've said. And then we get into the conventions and we do our 5-star writing checklist, like I just showed you. And then for each lesson there, we're practicing with whatever convention it is. So we're working on punctuation right now. We're working on capitalization, going through and making sure the first letters are capitalized in your words. And then we're working on spacing. When you're writing, are you putting spaces between your words? And then finally, we're working on that spelling. And are we spelling words as best we can correctly? Not every word needs to, they're not accountable for spelling everything correctly, but are you sounding things out in a kid writing way so I can understand what you're writing? For example, there are culminating activities in this as well, and there's two options. One is an Arctic animal and one is an ocean animal, and my daughter did an example. So you get a poster that you can either project or just print out of animals for them so they can use it in their writing, and they get a set of animals and an ocean, and then they can decide who goes in their ocean. And here's what she came up with. The red shark came to the octopus's birthday party, so did the turtle. And you'd see she didn't spell everything exactly correct, but she was sounding out her words. And she is not a kindergartner. My kindergartner, her handwriting is not quite as good, right? Not quite the same fine motor. She did the Arctic animal one. And you can see she said, the bear has a friend. He is in my neighborhood. He is kind. And look, her writing is not correct, all of it, but she's using the sounds that she knows and she's trying her best. So that's the kind of spelling. And when you're modeling, be sure to model inventive spelling so that they're encouraged to try that as well. All right, so we talked about the lesson plans and how they are editable. We talked about the posters and the corresponding anchor charts and worksheets, and you can make yourself or your students little sentence writing journals. Just put all their worksheets in the journal and staple, and you've got your journal, so then they can just keep it all in one spot if you prefer. You can use them at a writing center. Speaking of writing centers, we've got you covered there too. We have some sentence building mats. I love these pictures. Aren't the kid drawings so fun? So they pick a naming part and a telling part card and then write a sentence about it. There are recording sheets that they can use, or you can have them do it just like this. But there's whole sets of naming parts. So we've got all different animals and things, and telling parts are all different things as well. Jumping rope, eating cake, watching TV. Lots of fun pictures that they can use to start building those sentences and getting the practice. So that's an instant center that you can use. I have a couple of task cards. Some of them are just, is it a sentence? So they would say yes or no. And we did our best to use CBC and decodable words in these sentences so they can figure it out. So like small green frog tells what it is, but it doesn't tell what it's doing. So there's no telling part. That's not a sentence, right? The top spins around. The top is the naming part. Spins is the telling part. That is a sentence. And then there's also a set of animal pictures where they can write about the picture. And I broke it up into 2 sets of 6, but you could just say do a couple, or they can just pick and choose to do a few. But so like this is number 2, so they'd find number 2 in the pig, and they could write the pig is in mud, or the pig plays in mud. But they're practicing writing. So this is a little more advanced for the task cards, and then the building is in between, and then this would be back at the beginning where we're just identifying, is it a sentence or isn't it a sentence? So there are those centers, as well as a set of directed drawing prompts. And so it shows them how to draw the whale, and then there's room for their sentence at the bottom. And there's our 5-star writing checklist. Okay, write a 5-star sentence about your picture. Doesn't have capitalization, finger spaces, and it's on every one of the pages so that the kids can self-check their work. We also have, as you get further into our sentence writing unit, there are writing prompt pages that, here's one. This one goes along with our anchor chart, which is behind me. And so each of the writing prompt pages has the checklist at the top too, that rubric. So they're constantly thinking about, is it a 5-star sentence? You could have fun with that and add some stickers, little star stickers, or if you have a little star stamper, you can give them, their stamps for their stars. But it's fun to go back and check. Like with my daughter, when she did this one, she's got capitals all over the place where they don't belong. Now, I'm not homeschooling her. I don't love to be a teacher all the time. But if she had been my student, we would have gone back through with the checklist and said, did we have capitals where they're supposed to be? Or do we have punctuation? How's our spacing? And looking at each part of the checklist to just reinforce those conventions. Yeah, that's our writing unit in a nutshell. There are at least 2 weeks worth of lesson plans, but like I said, if you do part of the lesson plan one day and then follow up the next day with the activity, then you're going to get more than a month's worth of writing lessons right at your fingertips, ready to use. All of the worksheets and sentences are ready to just print and use. And like I said, you don't even have to print all of the anchor charts. You can display them on your board. Our 5-star writing checklist, you'll get the posters. You'll also get the little strips like that, so you can turn them over for each lesson. Like yesterday we talked about capitalization. Today we're talking about spacing, and make it a big and fun and engaging. This is all about setting them up for success and building successful, confident writers, block by block by block. And sometimes it feels a little slow, and some of your classes may be ready for a little bit faster pace, than that. But at least for my kiddos, we had to take it back to the very basics and build block by block and scaffold that support in a way that made sense, so they actually understand what sentences are, not just putting random capitals and periods on a page. All right, I will drop a link to our sentence writing unit down below so you can go check it out in our website shop. And if you have any questions at all, leave a comment while you're down there, like and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming videos. And here is how you can get in contact with me if you have any other questions or things you need to know. All right, until next time, have an exceptional day.